What's up, YouTube? Today I'm going to be finishing the Star-Lord mask. This is part 2 of the video. I go through, finish some of the detail stuff, the eyes, the lenses, and do some painting and sealing and all that. And I got it lit up right now. Pretty excited on how this fits and feels. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the video. And don't forget that February 20th, 2018, I will be live streaming after 9 p.m. Mountain Time, the winner of the current giveaway. So if you decided to participate in that, make sure you tune in and check out and see if you won or not. Alright, okay, let's go. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to want to do is finish these eyes. And initially I had bought some synthetic red dye, and it's not that the dye is synthetic so much as that's the name because it's meant to dye synthetic things like plastics. And I didn't have the correct kind of plastic, I guess, because I've been dyeing it for days and it hasn't dyed. So I went out and purchased these goofy and just quite frankly funny looking Star-Lord sunglasses that have red lenses. Now I found these on eBay. And it's funny, I actually had a hard time searching around on Google, Amazon, etc. for just red tinted lenses, red tinted clear plastic, like so on and so forth. And mostly all I could find was on Google searches was how to dye and tint plastic. I've also been watching people on Instagram do it as well. I just didn't have the right kind of acrylic to do it, and it was not dyeing. It was taking a little bit of the pigment, but not enough. Like where you can, if you look through these, you can see they're really red. These, of course, look very goofy. I feel like if you were a kid or smaller and you wanted to make like a Funko Pop looking Star-Lord mask, this would be perfect for this, area right in here. But, these are just kind of funny. I found these on eBay. So as far as getting red lenses, gosh, I don't have a link or anything to put down there. You're just going to have to search for it. I don't think they make this anymore. But this is the Guardians of the Galaxy Star-Lord sunglasses. And the packaging was not related to the movies, but to the cartoon. See, they have a nice red tint. And the awesome thing about these is that the front and the back are two pieces, and they have screws. And I've already started to loosen the screws. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of these screws out. And hopefully I won't have to do any dremeling or cutting, and these lenses will hopefully just pop right out. Hopefully. The next thing is lighting. I have some LEDs here that I've already tinted red. As you can see, it's red. And I did that just using a Sharpie Extreme. Why the Sharpie Extreme? The Sharpie Extreme, when you put it on plastic and you touch it, it doesn't come off. It stays on there. Unlike a lot of Sharpies where you'll write on something that's some sort of mold-injected plastic like this, and you'll touch it with your finger and it comes right off on your finger and it's not looking good. So yeah, the Sharpie Extreme is great for that. You can find these at Walmart. And this is, of course, not my idea. I saw this in a video a year or so ago. It was Sean Zing's Armored Batman cowl video. And he gets these at Walmart, and I got these at Walmart. And what these do is they clip on to the bill of a hat. So you can clip them on the bill of your hat and turn it on. You have, an instant headlamp that's small and concealable and easy to put in your pocket, etc., etc. And on this one over here, I've already gone and taken my multi-tool with my little screwdriver, and I already removed the clip for it and tossed that aside. So you can see this one does not have a clip, and this one does have a clip. See the difference there. And I just use a little screwdriver for my multi-tool. It's the same thing I'm using to take these screws out. And if you have a soldering iron and the intention, you could take this apart and just put the actual individual LED strip in there and make a little place out of foam or something for your batteries, just some Velcro or elastic or something to hold it in. What I'm going to do is make since I have enough space here for my head to fit with these, put fleshing on the side, and the nice thing about these is they have a curve. So it's going to fit in here quite nicely. And I'm going to put some EVA foam to just kind of stop it on the sides with some elastic over it. So I can turn it on, slide it in, and just have it going. And that should give some nice side illumination and light up my red lenses once I get them in there. So that's basically what I'm going to be doing for the lenses. And the lights. It's simple, it's straightforward, it doesn't cost a lot of money, it doesn't take a lot of time, doesn't require you to rip anything apart aside from removing this clip. Probably the clip on, but if this is up against your temples or your forehead, it's probably going to give you a headache and be really annoying. And if you're at a con, especially, you're not going to want something like that just slowly driving you crazy all day. That's no fun. No fun. And another thing I noticed from photos is the lenses and Star-Lord's mask. Depending upon the photo or how it's done, they look like they have some sort of either texturing on the lenses themselves or maybe some sort of mesh behind it. So I may put some mesh over it. I'm going to play around with that. If I do, I'm probably going to use Tulle because Tulle is very thin and won't obstruct my vision much in the slightest. And because already, if you look through these, they're very red. And that is kind of disorienting to look at the whole entire world just through the color red. It's weird wearing these, and I look really goofy and funny wearing these as well. It's quite silly. Of course, these are made for kids, and I am, of course, a grown adult, but yeah, Star-Lord. It's pretty goofy. So that's what I'm going to do for that. And as I just mentioned, to get started, I'm going to go ahead and unscrew these and see how this comes apart. Okay, so once I took this apart, I pretty much just popped the lenses right out. And lo and behold, this is pretty much exactly the same size as the actual hole itself. I literally couldn't have done that better if I had tried, and I had not tried because I did not own these whenever I cut the holes. I actually thought these were going to be too big and I was going to have to Dremel them down a little bit, but they're pretty much perfect. So that is awesome. Next, what I'm going to do is make out the outer piece that is going to go over this hole. And to do that, I'm going to use some EVA foam mat. But before I get into the cutting of the EVA foam, I mean, how cool is that? That's going to work out great. Man, that's awesome. Okay, so on to the actual lens cover pieces. What I have here is a piece of EVA foam mat. And this stuff's about, I want to say 8mm thick. In this part in between these weird grid things here. And on the actual grid things themselves are closer to 10mm. What I do to prep this is I just take some scissors and I roughly cut off all these grid pieces so it's somewhat flush. Once I cut this out, I'll take the actual round circular piece and I'll sand that smoother so it's going to fit nice and even. But what I did here to get the size of this is I put my red lens in the center here and I traced around it with a Sharpie. Now I was careful not to let the tip of the Sharpie touch the lens. If you do, you're going to tint the edges blue. You don't want that. Or maybe you do, I don't know, but I don't want that. So, in going around this, I now have a nice even rim to cut that will give me the width that I want, essentially. And for the internal measurement, I'm just going to go back around the inside with a Sharpie here and make this inside thicker, and I'll cut around that. That way, it'll be small enough on the inside that the lens won't slip through it, but just big enough on the outside that it should look pretty cool, fitting right in here. Okay, so I have my two pieces cut out here, and they are pretty even. And I tried to cut them on a bias as much as possible, but you can see this came out really ugly. I mean, really ugly. I don't want to put this on the mask looking like this. And as you can imagine what I'm going to do next, the Dremel. That's right, I'm going to have to sand this down. You can also hand sand it, you don't have to use a Dremel. Or, if you're just really awesome with your cutting mat and your X-Acto knife, you can probably just get this better. Certain points of the edges aren't that bad, but other ones are just pretty terrible. So I'm going to go ahead and sand these down and even them out. Okay, so I know a lot of times I speed up. I'm not going to do that with this because there's only a minute or so dremeling because this is a small piece, but just to give you an example and show you what I'm doing. All such things like speed, etc. are up to you, but this is the speed that I have it set at right here. Okay, a little bit past 15, say 16. And I'm using the medium grit sanding head. Also, once again, things like this are your preference. You know, you get to work with your tools, know your tools. You're going to do whatever you need to do, however you feel most comfortable doing it. But that's what I do. And now I've got a much nicer edge on this. I'm going to continue to work on this a little bit. The angle that I have to hold it at to do it, to get it on film, is a little bit awkward. So, yeah, I am going to do some more stuff off camera. And once I get both of these looking as even and nice as I feel they should look before I decide to glue them on, I'm going to cut out the center holes as well. Okay, so now that I am happy with both how they match up, they have to be even, of course, on the center, as well as on the back side here. Whenever you put them together, they should be the same size so they look consistent when they're on the mask, and getting the angles of each one as consistent and even as possible. And next what I'm going to do is cut out the centers. And I'm going to cut out the centers a little bit smaller than where I actually want them to be. And the reason for this is I have to most likely use a Dremel to even out the inside as well. It's very hard, I think, to cut small circles with an X-Acto knife. And whenever I do use an X-Acto knife, I use one with a curved blade like this. I feel that it does help. And I got this blade, which came with this entire set of stuff, which I did not buy. A guy I worked with was an artist. His name was Tony, and he donated this to me. So shout out to you, man. And it came with a wide assortment of blades. These ones are curved, and yes, I broke the tip. But it still works. And for most straight cuts on thin foam, I'll use these. For cuts on thicker foam, I like to use the longer ones, and because you have, whenever you hold the X-Acto knife more like this on the thicker foam as opposed to like this, you get so much more cutting surface and you get a nice even straight cut whenever you're trying to do that, so you don't have to go through and sand that or Dremel it like me with this. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cut out the insides of these and clean them up with the Dremel pretty much like I did with the outside edges. Okay, so I have cut out the insides. I have not used the Dremel yet. I want to show you here is I flipped them over, and on the back side I took the lens and placed it where I wanted in the center and drew around it again with a Sharpie. Careful not to get the blue Sharpie on it, unless that's what you want. I'm not here to tell you what to do, and maybe I am. And okay, so you see this blue line? I'm going to take the Dremel. I'm going to Dremel down at least the depth of the lens, maybe a little bit more, so I can countersink the lenses inside this. I'm going to do that after I round out the center, though. I'm going to round out the center first with the Dremel, and then I'm going to recess this. Once again, you can do all this stuff by hand. You don't have to have a Dremel, but it takes a lot longer to do it by hand. To show you all the stuff that I just explained, I took and evened out the center holes with the Dremel so that they both match in size. And once that was done, I went over here on the back side and ground in the edge so that the lenses will slip flush with this, and I can use some contact cement and put them in. Alright, decided not to texture or use any tool. I just glued the lenses in, and I used contact cement, and I contact cemented around the inside of the foam first, and then when I did the lenses, I literally just applied it to exactly the edge of the lens. I didn't try to take it any inside. The reason being, if you use contact cement before, you notice there's all these little stringy things here. Those stringy things are kind of like the annoying things from hot glue, but usually harder to get off, especially if it gets on the surface of something before it dries, and I didn't want a bunch of little stringy things going across, messing up my vision, etc., etc. So I was very particular to not gob a lot of contact cement on to the lens itself. And now I've applied some contact cement to the outside edge here around the inner lens, and put some around the eyes here because I am, yay, finally going to get to go ahead and glue these in. And as I was doing them, I was listening to the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack, and it felt pretty epic. Yeah, as far as putting lenses in. God, that sounds dumb, but yeah. Okay, so to get the lights to stay in place, I just drew around where it would fit in here. And I put a couple wedges, little just pieces here. They're about 10 millimeters wide, and they're 5 millimeter thick EVA foam. I just cut a strip of it, about 8 inches long, and just started hacking pieces off of it, and made sure that it would fit on either side of the light, and that it fit the actual shape of the light. And then next what I'm going to do is take some elastic, and using some super glue, I'm going to glue it here and here, so it's nice and taut between the two pieces. Okay, and here it is, lights in here. And I could probably even, if I wanted, add a third one up here, although that'd probably be slightly blinding, but it's not too bad the way it is right now, especially since I tinted it red already, and with the elastic, I can just slide this out, shut it off so the glare is not blinding everybody on the camera, and try to get this in the light so you can actually see it. Now, there is the elastic, and it just slides under that, turn it on, slide it in, done. No wiring, battery packs, or crazy stuff involved. And man, I'm getting pretty stoked on this. A couple little more detail things to clean up, and this will be ready to seal. Okay, one of the other little, probably at the end of the day, pointless detail pieces is on the inner side of the earpiece. I just used some 2 millimeter foam that I heated up with a heat gun, and I put these little circles into it, and I just cut out around the circles themselves to try to get it straight and even as possible. And this would ever focus. Okay, and to get this into the foam, I simply heated the foam up with a heat gun, and then I took a Sharpie, but it's the ones that have the pen that comes out, and with the pen retracted, I just pressed circles into the foam one after another, 3 in a row. Those aren't straight. Of course, I use my left hand. I'm not left-handed, so not bad for a left hand. What can I say? But yeah, that's how I got that. And I just cut it out. Here's the other one. I haven't cut it out or glued it on yet, but wanted to show you this. Maybe this is just pointlessly obsessive, but I wanted to put it on anyways. Alright, so I've done the first layer of sealing on this. I didn't film any of it because it's not really a point to film it. But what I did was I just used some Mod Podge, and I brushed it on all over the whole thing, in every single nook and cranny. And part of the reason why I used the Mod Podge and I did not use Plastidip is because there's so many little areas and stuff where I would have to, I'm afraid that it would build up too much in other areas and run to get it in all those little nooks and crannies, that I just used a brush and brushed it on the whole thing. Now, if you are going to use a brush, my advice is to go with the flow. What I mean is, on pieces like this here, I make the brush strokes go with the pieces. Or on this headpiece here, all the brush strokes went this way. On the side pieces, these green pieces here that I freehand cut for the outer panels, it follows the direction of the piece. And with the ears, I just went straight down. With, for example, the blue here and the green here and here, I went this direction, just straight around it. That way, if you get any brush strokes, it makes it look more like an actual metal grain. Since this is supposed to be, at least I'm assuming, a form of metal, it looks like metal. It's all copper and steel colors and things like that, the actual mask when it's painted. So yeah, I did the first layer of sealing by hand. I did the whole entire mask all the way around. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off the lenses on the front here and on the back. I'm going to mask both sides, okay? Excuse me, and the reason why I'm going to mask both sides is I don't want any overspray to get on the inside of the lenses and fog them up or make it look terrible because I did all this work to get this done. So I'm going to mask both sides off, including this top foam area here. I'm covering the whole shebang, covering this whole thing. This I'm just going to go back and hand paint at the very end. I'm not going to use the airbrush on that or risk getting that close into the plastic. If you know, it would happen to get under any mask I would have and get on the plastic, it's going to mess all this up. And I spent so many hours working on this. So many hours working on this, in fact, if I was asked to do a commission of this, I would say no. Because the amount of money that it would cost for you to pay me to spend all the hours to make this would just not be worth it. You'd be better off making your own or just buying a replica. And one of the things people ask, well, why don't I just get the Hot Toys or the... what is it called? I don't know what company it is that makes the really cool looking Star-Lord mask. It has lights in the eyes and it also has Bluetooth speakers in the ears. Well, yeah, you can do that. That's fine. Just go buy one. You know, don't spend the money or the time making it because it's going to cost as much. But the problem is a lot of cons when you want to go and enter the cosplay contest. Like, for example, the most recent convention I went to, you had to make 60% of the costume. So, you know, realistically what I would do is I would make the mask for Star-Lord. I would make the belts. I would probably have to make the spats, which look like you could make them out of pleather maybe. And certain things like that, possibly even the coat, just to qualify to get into the contest. And I would also probably make my own Walkman that I would just place a small MP3 player or my actual phone inside to clip to my hip with a cord that would run up into headphones that would be placed in here. You know, I'd be making every single little piece, the blasters, the holsters, anything that I could in order to qualify to get into that contest if I wanted to. And that's why I have videos where I make stuff like this. Like, yeah, sure, you can go buy one. It's going to be more screen accurate, probably look better, and ultimately be cooler. But if you want to enter a contest and they have rules like that, you have to make your own props. So that's why I am making this mask. Because at the end of the day, it'd be easier just to go buy one. So much easier. But due to rules like that, I have to make stuff. And I'm not real good at tailoring and sewing, so I don't see myself making pants or like a t-shirt. Maybe a coat if there was a good pattern, sure. But, you know, as far as things like that, no. So next, now that I'm done with this, I'm going to move on to spraying this sucker and masking off the eyes. Now that I have hand sealed the surface, one coat over everything and two coats on areas like here and this green area in the face and also where all these strips are, I put two coats. And now that they're dry, I'm going to go ahead and start airbrushing this. And I masked off the eyes by just roughly cutting out some circles of 5mm scrap foam. That's the same size, and it had masking tape. And I also kind of don't like using masking tape because sometimes it will tear off the finish or the smoothness that I've sanded into the foam, and it'll just start tearing chunks of foam out of it. I use Scotch tape, which doesn't stick as good, but since I have the whole entire lens covered inside as well as outside with the scrap circles of EVA foam, it should be fine. I don't expect anything is going to get through all these layers of tape that I've crisscrossed and wrapped around it. Excuse me. So that's good and sealed. And you don't have to use an airbrush. You can use spray paint or just hand paint it black or gray or whatever you want to primer it with. I'm going to primer mine with black because I happen to have black and I don't have gray, and a little bit of black and white I have left I don't want to mix. I'm not super broke right now, but not having to spend money is always great. And I thinned this out with some distilled water and a little bit of Windex and a little bit of mineral spirits, odorless mineral spirits, a very small amount, as in like a few drops in about an ounce or two of paint. And also added a little bit of Mod Podge and the glazing medium and mixed this up pretty good so that it's not, you know, separated and in clumps. And anytime you're going to pour your paint, you're going to want to mix it anyways. And I've already got my airbrush loaded up and have my safety glasses and a respirator. I'm going to sit this down here for a second whilst I put this stuff on. Okay, probably going to be a little bit muffled, and sorry if you're wearing headphones because here comes the air compressor turning on. Brace yourselves. Okay, so I have the pressure turned up to around 50 although the working pressure is closer to around 30 working pressures when you're spraying it, you'll notice the needle will immediately drop. So working pressure is closer to like 30, 35. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to go through and spray the entire mask. Once I get all of it done and it's dried, I'll flip it upside down because there's going to be nooks and crannies that I'm going to miss from one angle. I'm going to flip it upside down and catch all that stuff and touch it up on the other angle. So for the rest of the painting, I have some Createx transparent medium gray. As far as transparent paints go, the more you layer them on, the more opaque they become. The only reason I like using transparent paints is because I can layer it over a black primer and get it as light or as dark as I want in areas. And when you apply it thinner, of course, more of the black's going to show through. So if you want an area to look more shadowed or a little bit darker, you can put it on there. And I also have some more Createx. So this is Wicked Colors series they have, and this is gold. And that will be, of course, for the areas like around the eyes, etc., etc. And the other third main paint, I may end up using something else, but the third main paint, this is not going to go in my airbrush. This is an enamel. It's Model Masters Chrome Silver, and that will be used for some of the detailed areas and stuff on the mask where it's more of a chrome color and less of a gray. And first I'm going to start off by giving this paint a really good shake. And what I'm going to do is to open it up and make sure, look like it was pretty mixed up. Okay, go ahead and pour some into my airbrush. And I put it about half full. What I'm going to do is take some distilled water that I have in this bottle here. Add a little bit to that. Water thins out the paint and makes it a little bit easier to spray on. Give that a good shake. Of course, it does make the paint even thinner, so you're going to have even more of a transparent look. But it will go through the airbrush much better, I feel, whenever you thin it out with water, which is why I usually do that. I don't show that on camera generally, but I thought I'd do it this time. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this on and just start spraying the whole mask. Okay, so for a quick progress report here as far as what all I've gotten done, I've layered on my gray till I was happy. Then I took my gold paint and I watered it down about halfway with water and put in a couple drops of Windex to help make it go a little smoother through my airbrush. And I just applied the gold a little thicker on the raised areas and less on the lower areas to give it some contrast. And it's pretty much dry. And I'm probably going to take, because the gold is a little bit obnoxious for me, I'm not really quite 100% feeling that, but I do happen to have some metallic pure gold, which gives a pretty decent color I actually mixed it with a little bit of champagne gold and thinned it out a lot because this is not actual airbrush paint. This is regular old brush paint, and I had to add some stuff to this to get it thin enough to use. But I'm going to do a little overspray over the gold with that next. Alright, I'm much happier with the color now that I did the overspray with the pure gold acrylic paint. Pretty stoked on all that. So what I'm going to do next is, I've also, as you can see, removed my masking. What I'm going to do is the brush painting. And the two things I'm going to need to do is paint on the Model Master Silver Chrome. Now I do thin this down with a little bit of odorless mineral spirits just to get it a little bit smoother. And if you ever use this Model Master's enamel paint, it's very thick. It takes a long time to dry. When you thin it out, it goes on much smoother. You may have to do a second or third coat, but by putting on thinner coats, I feel like it comes out looking so much more even. So that's always a great thing to do with this. And I'm also going to have to hand seal and hand paint right around the lenses here, since I did not, of course, airbrush any of that. I had it masked off. To go ahead and apply this stuff and come back and let's check out how it looks. Okay, so I finished up all my detail painting. And for most of that I used a number 0 brush. I don't know if that matters to anybody or not. And of course, once again, Model Masters. And I used a little bit of Model Masters gold to touch up any of the gold on here. Now, it wasn't the exact same color. It was great for painting this little side piece, but yeah, it's not the exact same color. So I just pretty much dry brushed it, and if you're not familiar with that technique, it's pretty common, but you just get a little bit of paint on the end of your brush. And I was using this towel over here to just kind of wipe it off, and then I just put it in and then just kind of spread it out and rub it in, so you can't really tell where I did and didn't do it. And I also use the same similar dry brushing technique to put some of this weathering and what looks like battle damage and just wear and tear up here on the brow as well, you can see, and up here on the top piece. And I just looked at photos that were screenshots from the first Guardians of the Galaxy. Most of them came from the first scene where he's out in the rain, but you could see the different little spots of damage and stuff here. And I used the same Model Masters Chrome Silver and just dry brushed that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So now I think it's time to take the LEDs and put them in and try this on and see how it looks. Okay, so here it is with me wearing it. Of course, the next thing is going to be getting a wig, because even if I grow my hair out, I just don't have enough hair to pull it off at this age. But yeah, that's the Star-Lord mask. It fits great. It's not too tight, it's not too loose, it's pretty comfortable, and I can breathe, which is nice, because in some masks I have a hard time doing that. It's great having the top open too. That's really gonna help in like cooling me off and all that if I'm walking around at a convention. So yeah, pretty sweet, pretty stoked. And then as far as the LEDs go, here they are lit up in the room. I'm gonna flip the lights off and on so you can see how bright it is. Give you an idea how your project will look. They're not super bright to the point where they're blinding, but it's still bright enough that, you know, it'll light up your eyes and looks pretty sweet. So I am so far pretty stoked on this. Hopefully you guys are too. I of course have the pattern photos up on Facebook. If you want to download them for free, you can. That's not a problem. And I also have some patterns that I will be putting up on Etsy if you want to purchase cardstock patterns. Just keep in mind that the cardstock patterns are meant for someone with a 23.5 inch head. And that's basically the distance around your head where your headband would go if you're wearing a headband, for example, on your head. That's how you measure that. So if your head's larger than that, you're going to need to extend and expand your patterns. Okay, whether it's the photos from Facebook or whether it's the ones you're getting from Etsy. You know, the patterns are meant to fit my head or somebody with the same size or smaller. You know, so keep that in mind. Whether you're printing them off Facebook or whether you're purchasing them on Etsy, on Etsy. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and are as stoked on this as I am. I'm really, really happy with the way this came out and super excited that I'm finally finished. It's been about 3 weeks of working on it. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And as always, have a great day.